It is June the 25th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. It has been a long day today for me. It's like 7 o'clock right now. I have been ripping and running all day today, which is awesome. I'm so glad that I am able to, get up and do things again right now, because there was a time when I couldn't. There was a time when I could barely even make it up, a 5-step flight of stairs. Getting up out of my bed and going to the bathroom was difficult. And now, I've got to the point where I can go out and do things and, go shopping and, go to the store, take my kids to the park, just do normal everyday things. There's still certain things that I can't do. But for the most part, I can do, most things that, normal people do on a daily basis. And I am so grateful to be able to do these things. And I know that's not going to be forever. I know at some point I will get ill again. But for right now, I'm not. And I'm enjoying this. I'm doing as much as I possibly can and staying as busy as I possibly can. Because I talk about it on here all the time. Staying busy, I think, is one of the most important tools that we can use in order to stay sober. Because when we're busy, you're constantly moving, you're keeping your hands occupied, your mind occupied, your body occupied. We're not spending a lot of time thinking about other things. And for myself, it's such a blessing, like I said, for me to be able to get up, go do things with my children, because the summer of 2022 and the summer of 2023, I couldn't do anything with my kids. The summer of 2022, I had just gotten out of the hospital. I was newly sober. I got out of the hospital like right at the beginning of June. I think it was like June the 10th or 12th or something like that, back in 2022. So I get out of the hospital. I'm newly sober. I'm still not very well. I went right back to work in my business and was really pushing hard with that. And then I ended up getting sick again that September. And then it was, I found out that I had cirrhosis. I spent, a few weeks in the hospital up in Colombia. And that's when they told me to go ahead and go home because I had like a year left to live. And then the next summer, I had a TIPS procedure done that January of 2024, which didn't work out. And then they basically told me, hey, sorry, but we just can't do anything else for you. And I just went about living my life, just trying to fit in as much as I possibly could. And then I got a phone call from my interventional radiologist in May of that year. And that's when he told me he wanted me to come back down and speak with him. I went and talked with him, and he said he wanted to try the TIPS again. So I had my other TIPS procedure at the beginning of that summer, and man, that was a pretty rough procedure that I went through. And then I had a whole bunch of ERCPs that I had that summer. I had 6 surgeries that summer. So I didn't really get to do much in the summer of 2022, 2023. But last summer, I was able to spend some time with my kids. Now, I did get sick last summer. But at the same time, I was able to do a bunch of stuff. I went on vacation with my family last year, and then this year, I went on vacation with my wife and my kids again. We went back up to the mountains, which was a wonderful time. I had a really, really nice time with my family, especially, being sober. And, I'm just trying to fit in now as much as I possibly can, get as much done as I possibly can, while I have the opportunity to do so. Because like I said, I know that at some point, I'm not going to be able to do as much as I'm doing now, but I'm staying busy. And like I said, I think it's one of the most important things that we can do for our sobriety is just staying busy. If you find something to do, and you get that done, find something else. There is always something to do. And, and the best part about it is that when you wear yourself out doing things, staying busy, man, when you get in that bed at the end of the day, it feels great. I mean, it is amazing when you finally get your shoes and your socks off and you get cleaned up and brush your teeth and get in that bed. It feels so nice. And you feel like you deserve it. You know, you feel good about laying down and finally getting some rest. And you sleep well, you know, too. And then, you know, the next day it's, you know, what do you want to do? What, you know, do you have to go to work? Okay. But, you know, what are you going to do on your off time? You're going to fill it with things that you enjoy doing. I think that's, you know, even if it's something that you don't necessarily enjoy doing, but you're getting something accomplished and staying busy and not thinking about alcohol. But now that I've spent 5 minutes talking about that, that's not what I wanted to discuss today. What I wanted to talk about today is just what my experience with AA has been throughout my lifetime. You know, because I get questions quite often from people, you know, asking, have I ever gone to AA? Do I go to AA? And, you know, what did I get out of AA if and when I did go? And the answer to those questions is yes, I have been to AA before. I've gone to AA actually a bunch of times. I don't currently go to AA now. But I have gone to an AA here a few months back. I guess it was probably about 6 months ago was the last time that I went. I was having a really, really, really rough day one day. Just nothing was going right for me that day. You know, every time I turned around, something went wrong and this broke. And it was just one of those days where I was like, you know, on the verge of snapping. It was just a really bad day. And it was a Friday. I remember that. Because, you know, my wife was home. It was the beginning of the weekend. My wife gets off work at 12 o'clock on Fridays. Unless it's tax season. When it's tax season, she doesn't get off early on Fridays. But she had gotten off work early that day. And, you know, we were supposed to be spending time together, hanging out. And just nothing was working out for me that day. I just was in a bad mood. I kept thinking about drinking. And I told my wife, I said, I have to go do something about this right now. Like, I'm on the verge of, you know, relapse right now because it's just been one of those days. And I did something about it. I got online, I looked up AA meetings, and I found one. And I had like 30 minutes to get there. So I hurried up, ran over there, and when I pulled up into the parking lot, I'd never been to this place before. It was at a church. When I pulled up, there was somebody else getting out of their car, and I asked, you know, is this the place? Is this the AA meeting? And the lady told me, yeah, it is. She was very nice and walked me in, but when I got into that AA meeting, man, I could not have felt more unwelcomed, and that's just the truth. I don't have anything negative, you know, to say about AA, really. I've just had some bad experiences with it, and this was one of them, you know. And like I said, it's about 6 months ago. I was just having a really rough day and decided to go to an AA meeting to go speak to some people and see if it didn't help me. And when I got there, like I said, I walked in and everybody kind of looked at me like, you know, what are you doing here? And I think what was going on is that it was one of those AA meetings where these people have been going to that same place, the same group of people. They've all been meeting with each other for maybe a decade, who knows? But, you know, this is the same group of people. They don't get very many new people in there, probably. And they could probably sense that I was, you know, on edge that day as well. You know, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. It's not hard to pick up on the fact when I'm upset or angry or sad or, you know, anything. You know, you can read it. It's on my face when that's going on with me. And I think they probably could read the fact that I was really frustrated that day. But when I went in, you know, they did their whole little spiel at the beginning and all that stuff. And they were doing something with river rocks. I don't really remember what they were doing. The lady had a bunch of river rocks, and she handed them out to everybody. And I think that you, like, held up your rock, and then you had a chance to speak. I don't really remember how it went. But all I do remember is that I tried talking a few times in the meeting. And, you know, I just kind of voiced my opinion on how frustrated I was and how badly I was thinking about drinking that day and, you know, how I didn't want to go back to it. And I spoke about how alcohol almost took my life. And like I said, I just felt like they didn't really want me there. You know, I just didn't really get much positive reinforcement. Everybody just kind of stared at me while I talked. But But I stuck it through. I went through the whole meeting, and then after I got done, I just said, I'm not going back to that place again. I just really did not feel welcomed. But I've been to other AA groups where I felt very welcome. As a matter of fact, let me start from the beginning here, because I said I was going to talk about my experience with AA. I've been going to AA since I was very young. Somewhere around the age of probably like 15 or something like that was the first time I went to an AA meeting. When I was around 15 years old, I had gotten caught with alcohol, underage possession of alcohol, and which would show you, I was drinking at a very young age. As a matter of fact, I got caught with alcohol underage like 3 or 4 times, before I was 21. And, it's not like it was some major charge or anything, it's just like a little misdemeanor. It's basically just a traffic ticket. But because I was young, the judge ordered me to go to AA due to, underage possession of alcohol. And each time that I got caught, that was part of, what the judge wanted me to do. It's not like I was on probation or anything like that, but the judge said, I want you to attend some AA meetings. And I had to go, and I don't remember how many I had to attend, but there was like a number, maybe 10 meetings or something like that. Each time that I got in trouble for underage possession, I had to attend AA meetings a few times. So I spent quite a few times going to AA when I was younger. And there's a whole lot more to it, and I'm not going to get into all the details of all the things that happened when I was a teenager, but I'll just put it to you like this. When I was a teenager, I was really wild. I was out there. When I say, I talk about the fact that I was drinking at a very young age, I was. And not only was I drinking at a very young age, but I was drinking pretty heavy at a very young age, and a lot. I drank a lot on the weekends. I was partying all the time. I smoked a lot of broccoli back in those days as well. Pretty much anything that, if somebody, said, hey, I've got this, I would say, let's do it. The only thing that I turned down was the radio for the most part. There's a couple of things that I never really fooled around with. Like ice and stuff like that. I never fooled around with that. But there, all the other stuff I fooled around with, and just never really cared for any of that stuff. Alcohol and broccoli were the two things that just really got me going. And then once I really started drinking and really started to fall in love with the alcohol, the broccoli just kind of went to the wayside. I didn't even really care about it anymore. At that point, all I really wanted to do was just drink. And also, I was a manager in a restaurant chain. I was worried about getting a drug test or something and, failing that and losing my job. So I was kind of afraid to do it. But alcohol was completely legal. So, and everybody in my company drank too. My boss drank. He drank heavily. He had AUD for sure. And most of the other managers in the company probably had a problem with alcohol as well. But anyway, I'm getting off subject again. Like I said, when I was younger, I had to go to quite a few AA meetings. And looking back now, I really wish that I'd paid more attention to what was going on when I was in there. It was kind of like a joke to me when I was that age. I would go there, I would go to the AA meeting, and I probably had just smoked some broccoli before I went in there, probably had a couple of drinks or something before I went there. There were a bunch of other kids who were my age who were in there as well because they had gotten in trouble for something too. And I knew most of those other guys that were in there, so it was more of a place for us to meet up and for us to get into more trouble because it just brought us all together. We would go to the AA or NA meeting or whatever, and, as soon as we were finishing up the meeting, they would have a break in the middle too, so we would go outside and smoke a cigarette, drink some coffee, and instead of us going out there and talking about, what we're learning in this AA class and all that kind of stuff. No, we walked outside, and the first thing we talked about is, where are we going after this? Does anybody know somebody that can buy us alcohol? Does anybody have any broccoli? Does anybody have any substances? You know, where are we leaving and going to from here? Let's go hang out here. Let's go get drunk. Let's go get high. That's all we cared about. And like I said, it was just a place that brought us all together, and then we all hung out afterwards. And I met a lot of people in the AA as well. But there were so many people that got up and spoke in those AA meetings that I remember. And now looking back, I wish that I had heeded the warning that these people were trying to give me. I will never forget, like I said, I was like 15, 16 years old. I'm sitting in an AA meeting, and this old guy gets up. He looked like a biker, you know, real long hair, long beard. And he gets up and starts talking about, you know, his lifelong drinking and all that stuff. And he finally got to the point where he said, and I've spoken about this before, where he said that, you know, it had gotten to the point where his tolerance had gotten so high that he had started injecting tequila into his veins. I don't remember how he said it went or anything like that. I just remember him saying that he was injecting tequila straight into his veins, and that blew me away. I was like, what? You know, why would you do that? And being that age and hearing all these, you know, older people, these old timers tell their stories about their lifelong addiction with alcohol and all the problems it's caused for them, you know, I just thought it was, you know, whatever, you know, no big deal. I won't end up like that, because in the back of my mind, I always thought that will never happen to me. That happens to those people. It happens to the people that have problems, but I'm not one of those people. And that's what I told myself my whole entire life, is that I don't have a problem. You know, and if I want to stop, I can stop whenever I want. And I kept telling myself that, you know, going all the way up through my 20s until I got to my 30s, and then I tried stopping and I couldn't. Now, I had tried stopping in my 20s too, but I didn't really give it much effort. Like, just kind of basically, I'd gotten in trouble with my wife and told her that I'd stop, and it just didn't work out. You know, maybe I got like 2 days in, and then I went right back to it. But I wasn't ever really serious about it back then. But like I said, you know, I went to AA in my teenage years, probably attended 30, 40 meetings, somewhere around there. It was quite a few. Listened to a lot of people tell their stories, and like I said, I didn't take any of it seriously. And now looking back, I really wish that I would had. But I was young, hard-headed, thought I knew everything. And now, you know, I have kids of my own. You know, I have a daughter that's 21. I've got a son that's about to be 15. And I have another son that's 11. And just, you know, especially my teenagers, or my 15-year-old and then my 21-year-old, you know, they think they know everything. And, you know, I get reminded of that, you know, when I'm speaking to my kids and they start telling me about something, and listen to them act like they know everything as I'm trying to talk to them, and they're cutting me off to tell me something that I'm getting to the point anyway, but you know, they know everything, so they have to cut me off to tell me. And I see myself and my kids all the time, you know, with that I know everything attitude, and I don't need to listen to you because I already know, and that will never happen to me kind of an attitude, because my kids are young, you know, and they you know, I speak to them about alcohol almost every single day. You know, and my kids tell me all the time, Dad, you don't have to keep telling me. I'm not going to drink. I already know. And it's like, no, you don't know. You know, that one drink, if you have that one drink and you like it, that could cause problems for you for the rest of your life. And I tell my kids all the time, just don't even drink at all. You know, why? You don't know what it tastes like. You don't know what it feels like. How about just don't ever find out? And I don't lie to my children, you know, I'm honest with them. I tell them, you know, it's a good feeling when you drink. It's just, you know, it doesn't last for very long, and it's a quick fix. It doesn't permanently fix anything. It's like patching a tire instead of replacing the tire. At some point later on down the road, you're going to have problems with it. You know, you might get 100 miles down the road or something with a patch tire, but it's not going to last forever. And, you know, that's where I was at with it. But, you know, like I said, I went to a bunch of meetings in my teenage years, and then I started drinking really heavy. I had moved out on my own. I've been on my own since I was 16 years old. I had moved out, and being 16 on my own, I was working a full-time job and going to school. I lived on my own, and my roommate was old enough to buy alcohol, so I drank a lot. And that whole AA stuff, that was in the past now. And then eventually I got to the point where I was of age and I could drink. And luckily I never got a DUI or anything like that. And as a matter of fact, now looking back, it probably would have been a good thing, because I probably would have woke me up and made me stop drinking if I'd gotten one. But, the past is in the past. There's nothing I can do about it now. But, I went through my 20s, ended up getting into a lot of trouble with my wife. Not cheating on her or anything like that, just, hanging out with my buddies too much. Instead of coming inside the house when I would get home at night, I'd pull into the garage and step out of my car and walk right across the street to my neighbor's house and hang out with them till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning every single night, instead of going inside. Instead of going inside and getting in the bed with my wife and putting my arms around her and talking to her for a little bit, no, I just decided to hang out with my next door neighbors and my friends, because my drinking and my hanging out with my buddies was more important. But anyway, I went all through my 20s. I didn't attend any classes or any AA or anything like that through my 20s. Got to my 30s, and around the age of 32, my alcoholism really started to get out of control. I mean, to the point where, it was becoming a very, very big problem for me. But I still didn't do anything about it. It was causing a lot of problems in my relationship with my wife. I could just feel the tension in the household. Nobody wanted to be around me because I was always so intoxicated. I was embarrassing. Bumping into walls, slurring my words every day. I still, when I think about it, it makes me cringe. Because I wonder, why did my wife stay with me through all of that? I just don't understand. Because I know for myself, if I was coming home every single day and my wife was slurring her words, passed out in the bed, it would have been a problem. I'm so blessed that she loves me enough to stick it out with me and stay through it with me, and with hopes that I was going to turn it around, which finally happened, but that didn't happen until I almost lost my life. But back to the AA stuff, like I said, it started to become a real big problem around the age of 32, but I still wasn't going back to any meetings. My wife kept begging me. She was asking me to go to a rehab facility, and I kept telling her, no, how are we going to afford that? First of all, we have to pay for the rehab facility, and then on top of it, I'm not going to be able to work. I'm going to lose my job. How is this going to work out? I wish that I had gone. Because at the end of the day, I didn't have anything else to lose except for my life, and I almost lost that anyway. So if I had just said the heck with it and just went, things might have turned around. But once again, the past is in the past. But the point is the reason I come on here and talk about this every single day is with the hopes that maybe somebody out there will learn from my mistakes. Maybe one of these stories that I'm telling and talking about how I had to go to AA, all these times, and it didn't do anything for me. And then, I went 20 years without going back again, and then almost lost my life. Maybe somebody will take something from that and go, I don't want my life to turn out that way. Maybe it's time for me to stop. Like I said, that's why I come on here every day. But back to what I was saying, about 32, my alcoholism got really bad, and I didn't do anything about it. And, the pressure kept getting higher and higher and higher through my 30s until about the age of 38. About that age, my wife had just had enough. She was done with it. And she basically had given me an ultimatum and told me that it's time for you to stop, or I'm going to have to leave with the kids. And I decided that I don't want that to happen. And my wife told me, I support you. I'm going to be here for you. She said, I'll even leave work after I get off, because there's an AA meeting, and the AA meeting starts at like 6:30 or something like that. So, and she got off work at 6, and I worked like a mile down the road from my wife, so it wasn't far. We both worked downtown. My wife came and picked me up and drove me straight down to the AA meeting, which was about another mile down the road. But she would drive me there to ensure that I actually made it, to ensure that I got there and I stayed. And she would sit in the parking lot and wait for me. You know, talk about, you know, like I said, being blessed. That's love right there. And I'm so grateful to have my wife. You know, it's one of the reasons I feel so ashamed, you know, for the things that I did, you know, the way that I drank, to have somebody that was so willing to try to help me. But she did that for you know, a couple months, you know, was taking me to AA, and she would sit in the parking lot while I was in there. You know, I think AA went on for like an hour, maybe a little bit longer, but she would come pick me up, take me to the AA, wait, and then she would take me back to work. And by the time that I had gotten out of the AA meeting, when I got back to work, dinner service was just about to start. So it was like perfect timing for me. And I had told my boss too, you know, hey, this is what's going on. He knew I had a problem with alcohol, and I just told him, you know, I've got to leave. I've got to go do this AA thing. I'm trying to turn my life around. He understood and was totally all for it. And that went on, like I said, for quite some time. And I was really trying hard to get sober. You know, I'd get a few days in, relapse, drink for a few days, and then I'd get right back on the wagon again after a couple of days of drinking. And that went on for maybe 4 or 5 months of, you know, getting sober for a few days, relapsing, drinking for a few days, then I'd get sober again for another few days. I felt horrible throughout that period of time because I was really putting a lot of stress on my body. I would drink super duper heavy on the days that I relapse, and because I'm like, I can't drink tomorrow, so I got to drink it all up tonight, and then the next day I would feel horrible. So then in order for me to be able to quit again, I'd have to really cut back on my drinking the night before I would quit, because I didn't want to wake up with that horrible hangover to where I had to have the hair of the dog. I couldn't make it through the day with one of those bad hangovers without it. But anyway, like I said, you know, I went for a couple of months. I kept quitting and relapsing, probably quit and relapsed 20 times through that period. And, you know, I got to know some really cool people in there. It was a great group of guys and ladies. It was actually a rather large AA group, run by some really good people. And, you know, I got a sponsor. I had some problems with my sponsor. Anytime I would call him, and what was funny about it is he was in the restaurant industry as well. You know, anytime I'd call him, because he told me originally, you know, call me anytime if you have a problem, and I'd call him, and he would be like, you know, I'm busy right now. He never was available for me, and not that that was his fault. It's just I needed somebody really bad during that period of time. There were a few times, you know, I was so close to drinking, I was bawling, crying, and I just needed somebody to help talk me off the ledge. And I called him a few times, and not, like I said, not that it was his fault, but I called him once, and he's like, hey, I'm sitting on the couch watching a movie with my girlfriend right now. I can't talk. And there were a couple other times that I called, and he was busy, so I just said the heck with it. I didn't call him anymore, because not one time was he available. And once again, it's not that that was his fault. Probably just called at the wrong time every time, but I didn't see it that way back then. You know, back then I took it personal, you know, got really upset about it and was like, you know, the hell with AA. I'm not going back to that. They don't care about me. Every time I try to call my sponsor, he never answers. He never can speak with me. So what does it matter? And I just went back to drinking. I told my wife I'm not going back anymore. I'm done with it. And I wish that I had not done that. I wish I had stuck it out, and I wish I had continued to go, but I didn't. And ended up in the hospital almost losing my life because I couldn't stick through it. And I'm not saying that AA is for everybody, because it's not. But it does really work for some people. For some people, it works wonders for them. And that is so awesome. My point to today's video is that if you haven't tried AA yet, and you're still trying to quit drinking, and you've tried a lot of other things and they're not working, why not give it a shot? What do you have to lose at this point? It might work for you. And I didn't just tell you all these stories just now to discourage you from going to AA. I'm telling you my experience with it. I had some good experiences with AA. I don't have anything against AA at all. I think it's a great thing. It's a great group of people. I love what they're doing. I love their mission. I love that they're trying to help people get off of alcohol. I absolutely love that. Like I said, I just didn't have the greatest of experiences. At the same time, too, though, I had a horrible attitude back then. I really did not want to quit drinking. It wasn't in my heart to stop. I was trying to do it for my wife. I was trying to do it for my kids. I was doing it for other people. I wasn't doing it for me because I wanted to get my life back in order. And that's why it wasn't successful, because I really, truly didn't want it deep down inside. I wanted to, I guess, I'm having a hard time phrasing this. I wanted to get sober. I just didn't want to put the hard work in that it took in order to get there. That's the point that I'm trying to make. And if you really want to get sober, you want it more than anything else, and you haven't tried AA yet, give it a shot. Like I said, what else do you have to lose at this point? Try everything until something sticks. Don't give up. Keep pushing forward. And like I said, if you haven't tried AA, just go give it a try. I went about 6 months ago. I just went to the wrong meeting. That's fine. These people might have been meeting for the last 20 years and they might not like outsiders coming into their group. That's cool. No big deal. I tried to go in. They didn't really accept me. But this other AA group that I used to go to, lovely group of people. Everybody there was super nice. I just didn't have the greatest experience with my sponsor. I could have found another sponsor. I could have said, hey, is there anybody else here that would mind being my sponsor? But no, I decided that that one sponsor didn't work out, so I'm done with this. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm going to go back to drinking. I wasn't dedicated. My heart wasn't in it, and I didn't want it for myself. I didn't really, truly want to turn my life around. I wasn't ready to give up the alcohol yet. It wasn't until I almost lost my life that I finally went, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm done with, getting sick all the time, ending up in the hospital and all this stuff. I'm over it. And it wasn't until that happened that I was finally able to stop. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let it get to the point to where you get sick before you decide to stop, or worse. Don't wait until you end up in the hospital, in the ER, knocking on death's door, or you end up with handcuffs on your arms and you're going to jail because you got a DUI or you got in a car accident and either hurt somebody or worse, or whatever happened. Don't let it get to that point, or don't let it get to the point to where your family are having to bury you because you continue to drink. You took it that far. Because that's the three places that we end up if we continue to drink. And I hate to keep driving this home all the time and saying this, but it is the truth, guys. Alcohol is poison. It is literal poison. Every time that you pour it down your throat, it's causing damage to everything. There's not anything it doesn't damage. As soon as it touches your lips, it starts to destroy stuff. As it's going down your throat, it's destroying cells as it goes down your throat. It starts messing with your stomach. Then, as soon as it gets in your stomach, then it starts messing up your pancreas, your liver. I mean, just everything. Alcohol is poison. It's not good for you. And like I said, there's three places that it's going to take you if you continue to drink. Give AA a shot if you haven't. Like I said, I've had some good and some bad experience with AA, but I think, like I said, it's a great group of people, and I think it's worth a try. There's even online AA that you can try. Try that out first. You don't even have to even get in your car and even drive anywhere. Do a virtual AA meeting and see what you think. Give it a shot. Try it more than once. If you try it one time and you don't really like it, try it again. Try it 3 or 4 times. If you try it 3 or 4 times and you still don't like it, then that's okay. But my point is give it a shot. Anyway, guys, my camera's about to die here, so I need to go ahead and get off of here before it does. But thank you so much for watching. I truly do appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day today. Like I said, give it a shot if you haven't tried it yet. I love you guys so much, and until tomorrow,